All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into a really profound mystical paradox, one that basically flips our whole modern idea of success and power completely on its head. It comes from the Zohar, the foundational text of Kabbalah, and it lays out a spiritual law that's as real as gravity. To become truly great, you first have to make yourself small. And look, this isn't just some nice philosophy or a metaphor for being humble. We're going to unpack it as a kind of spiritual technology, a precise mechanism for some radical transformation. So let's get into it. So here it is, the core text from the Zohar. And when you really sit with it, it's a genuine, life-altering riddle. Fortunate is the one who makes himself small in this world, how great and exalted he is in that world. Now, our brains, our conventional logic, immediately want to say, oh, okay, be humble now, get a reward later in the afterlife. But the Zohar, you got to understand, it's talking about something way more immediate and dynamic than that. It's outlining a real-time metaphysical law. There's a direct causal link between diminishing your presence here in this world and expanding your very essence in a higher spiritual one.
And that right there, that's the central question for us today, the one we're going to spend our time unpacking. I mean, how does this actually work? What are the mechanics behind it? Is it just a nice psychological trick to get us to behave better? Or is it, like the mystics teach, a form of cosmic engineering with predictable, repeatable results? How on earth can the act of shrinking, of contracting, possibly lead to infinite expansion? That's the mystery we're here to solve. So here's our roadmap. We're going to break this down into 6 parts. We'll start with the Zohar's great paradox itself. Then we'll uncover the secret of what contraction really means. After that, we dive into the cosmic engineering of humility and see a wild case study in the life of Sarah. Then we'll look at 2 practical models to help it all make sense, and we'll wrap up with the soul's ascent and what this all means for us as human beings. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the first layer of understanding. In mystical tradition, there's a 4-level system for interpreting texts called pardes. We're starting with the first level, shat, which is just the simple, literal meaning. This is where the Zohar puts its cards on the table, plain and simple.
So what the Zohar is laying out here is this perfect inversion, like a spiritual mirror. He who is small becomes great. And this is so crucial. The reverse is also true. He who makes himself great in this world, filled with ego, with pride, constantly needing to take up all the space, ultimately becomes small in that other, more essential reality. The Zohar isn't just giving us some poetic advice here. It's stating a fundamental spiritual law, as real as any law of physics. It's a system of reciprocity reality. Whatever you project in this lower dimension has an equal and opposite reaction in the higher one. It's like a closed-loop system. The space you vacate here doesn't just vanish, it gets filled, big time, somewhere else.
All right, let's peel back another layer and go deeper to the second level of pardes, called remez, the hint, or the underlying principle. And here, we have to get really clear on what making oneself small actually means. This is so important because it has nothing to do with self-hatred or low self-esteem or being weak. It is the exact opposite. It's a strategic, conscious, and incredibly powerful spiritual action. And the key phrase for this, in the original Aramaic, is azayir garmeh. It literally means he makes his body small. But we're not talking physical here. This refers to the conscious, deliberate act of contracting your ego, your sense of self-importance, your whole psychic presence. Just notice the language. It's active. He who makes himself small. This isn't a passive state of just being a nobody. It's the active discipline of becoming a no thing to create a vacuum, a sacred void, so that something infinitely greater can rush in. It's really the art of getting out of your own way. Okay, to make this ancient idea click, let's use a modern analogy. Think of your ego, your pride, your need to be right, all your demands. Think of it like a slow, bloated local server. It's burning all its own resources just to run its own operations, getting in its own way, generating a ton of heat. The act of azayir garmeh is like stripping that local server down to a sleek, minimal interface. By reducing your local processing load, you open up this high-speed channel to the cloud, to a near-infinite backend of distributed power. You've created the capacity to channel a flow of energy and insight that your little local self could never, ever handle on its own. So, okay, if that's the principle, how does it actually work? What are the mechanics? This brings us to the next level of pardes, the drosh, the deep allegorical blueprint. And this is where we map the actual flow of spiritual energy through the cosmic system known as the Sephirot, the 10 divine emanations through which the infinite reveals itself. We are about to see, step by step, how the simple act of humility engineers the state of greatness.
This whole thing unfolds in 4 really distinct stages. It's like a beautiful, logical cascade of cause and effect. It all starts with a contraction in Malkund, the kingdom, which is our physical world down here. This act of humility creates a kind of vacuum that opens up Yesod, the foundation, which is the spiritual channel. Divine energy then rushes up, gets received and balanced in Tiferet, the heart of the system, representing beauty and harmony. And from there, once it's stabilized, it achieves this infinite expansion in the highest realms of Keter and Bina, the crown and understanding. Just imagine a tiny, dim point suddenly becoming the source of a blazing infinite light. That's the map we're following. So, step 1. It all starts right here, with us, in what's called Malhut, the kingdom, our physical world. This is our stage. So when a person practices genuine humility, letting someone else have a last word, letting another car go first, doing a good deed without needing credit, they were performing a real spiritual action in Malhut. They are consciously contracting their ego. And that act creates what you can think of as a spiritual low-pressure zone, a vacuum right here in the material world. It's the absolute necessary first step, creating the empty vessel that's ready to be filled. You know the saying, nature abhors a vacuum, right? Well, so does the spiritual world. The emptiness you create down here in Malhut immediately activates the next sphera, Yesod, the foundation. And Yesod is the great channel. It's the conduit that connects our physical world to all the spiritual worlds above. When you diminish your ego, you're basically opening the valve on this channel. The divine flow of creative energy, known as the Shefa, is literally drawn upward from that contracted point in Malhut, rushing in to fill the void you just made with your humility. Okay, so you've got this rush of powerful energy. Where does it go? It flows directly into Tiferet, which means beauty or harmony. This Sephira is like the heart center of the whole system, the great harmonizer. Tiferet takes that immense upward rush of energy that was pulled through Yesod, and it balances it, integrates it, and transforms it from this raw, chaotic force into a stable, radiant, integrated state of being. This is the exact point in the system where smallness gets alchemically transmuted into true, sustainable greatness. And that brings us to the final stage, the big payoff. Once that energy is harmonized in Tiferet, it continues its natural ascent, reaching the absolute highest supernal realms of Bina and Keter, divine understanding and the infinite crown. Up here, in these realms of pure potential, there are no limits, no constraints. The essence of the soul, which was drawn up through one simple act of humility way down below, undergoes this unconstrained, infinite expansion. That is the greatness and exaltation in the world to come. It's not just a title or a reward, it's an actual state of expanded consciousness, achieved through this incredible, elegant process.
Okay, now we get to the deepest level, the 4th level of Pardes, the Sod, which means the secret. And this is where it gets really amazing, because the Zohar doesn't just give us a theory, it shows us the proof, the mechanism itself, hidden in plain sight inside the grammar of the Torah. This is the aha moment that ties the whole cosmic blueprint to a concrete textual example. So the verse lays out the years of Sarah's life, 100-year and 20-year and 7 years. Now, on the surface, that phrasing sounds a little odd, but simple enough. The Zohar, though, tells us to look much, much closer, because the spiritual engineering we've been talking about is encoded right here. And I mean, pay very close attention to the Hebrew words being used for year versus years.
Okay, let's break this down, because this table is where it all comes together. For the biggest number, 100, the Torah uses the singular form, shana, year. It makes the great number grammatically small. It does the exact same thing for 20, another big number, shana, singular. But then for the smallest number, just 7, it suddenly flips to the plural, expansive form, shanim, years. Do you see what's happening? The Torah itself is performing the action of Azir Garmai. It is deliberately making small the great things and making great the small thing. The entire principle is baked right into the life of Sarah the matriarch, who was a model of this spiritual path. She lived it, and the Torah etched it into the very grammar of her life story as an eternal proof. It's just mind-blowing.
So, how do we make this cosmic blueprint real in our own lives? How can we actually grasp it? An idea this big needs a few ways to get our heads around it. So let's bring this abstract concept into 2 really practical and understandable models, built for different ways of thinking. All right, first up, let's think about it like a video game.
Imagine you're playing as a super powerful character, but you get to a point where you have to pass through a tiny, impassable keyhole to get to the next level. The only way through is to use a special ability to shrink, to abandon your current powerful form and become small, maybe even vulnerable. You squeeze through the keyhole, and on the other side, you don't just go back to your old size. You unlock a massive new world, a huge level up, with abilities and power-ups that are way beyond what you had before. The whole point is, the shrinking was a temporary, strategic move for an exponential reward. And now, for a more analytical way to look at it, let's go back to that tech analogy. Think of yourself as a single node in a massive distributed network. The action you take is to minimize your own resource draw, to lower your local computational footprint. You stop insisting on doing everything your way. You stop demanding all the attention and all the bandwidth. And what's the reward? The central system sees your minimal footprint in your open, efficient connection, and it can now allocate near infinite resources from the entire network to your task. By making yourself small within the system, you've allowed the power of the entire system to flow right through you.
So let's bring all of this whole cosmic journey, right back to Earth, back to the individual soul. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just metaphysics or some abstract theory, it is a guide to ethical and spiritual practice. What does it actually mean to apply this in our daily lives, and how we deal with other people?
Sometimes the best way to understand something is to look at its polar opposite. The classic text, Shara Kedusha, the Gates of Holiness, tells us that anger is a branch of pride. And listen to this absolutely devastating spiritual assessment. When a person gets angry, it's as if they're worshiping a strange god, and that strange god is their own ego. Why? Because in that moment of rage and self-importance, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, becomes insignificant to them. Anger is the ultimate act of making yourself great in this world. It's you screaming, "My will, my honor, my view is all that matters." And in doing that, you completely sever the connection that humility opens. You slam the valve of Yesod shut, and you keep your soul trapped, overheating in its own small local server.
And so, after all this, after unpacking the paradox, the mechanics, the proof, it all boils down to one simple but really profound question for you, for me, for all of us. This isn't just theory. It's a challenge. It's an invitation. Look at your life, your interactions, your ambitions, your reactions. Where is your ego taking up too much space? Where is your pride blocking the flow? Which part of your world, which opinion, which need to be right, will you consciously choose to make smaller, to create that sacred vacuum, and allow a greater, more profound light to finally enter?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We really hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.